I never spent the time to really get to know myself. Coming from Asian upbringing, you're taught that happiness lies on making other people happy. And you're happy if somebody else is happy. And so I spent most of my early childhood making others happy. I had to take care of everyone, and watching them really succumb to their diseases that I did not know who I was. And so it really took me this human to really kind of challenge what does unconditional love for yourself actually mean, and how can you love yourself unapologetically even when times are tough.
I feel the biggest pain when I see people who cannot find their place under the sun. Unmotivated, sad, and desperate people. Business owners, entrepreneurs, suffering from burnout, stress, and boredom, and no time for their family. My biggest goal is to help them realize that this world provides enough opportunities for everybody. I managed to help thousands of people, but I strongly believe that we can do so much more if we unite our knowledge and skills. And this is the reason I started doing interviews with the best visionaries and world changers. Their inspiring personal and success stories are a proof that everything is possible. All you have to do is listen and learn. Together, we can change our lives and the future of this world. Hello, Warrior family. We are here in Tallinn. We have a special guest today. She is a former dentist and she is turned educator, international trainer, self-proclaimed wellness geek, and best-selling author of 2 books, Emotional Grit, and she co-authored the new released book, The Book of Coaching. She works with high-performance coaches, entrepreneurs through 6-month business incubator. She is a doctor and she is a coach and speaker. What a difference in how many years?
Wow. I could probably say my whole life.
Your whole life?
Yes.
So welcome, Neeta Bhushan. Neeta, welcome in our show.
Thank you.
Warrior Family Show.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank
because
you.
I can see something is going on there.
There's a little human growing in here. It's not a bowling ball.
So it's 6 months already.
We're 6 months, yes.
So it will happen in September.
In October.
In October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Nice. You're happy?
It's our first, so.
It's your first baby.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you see yourself like in 4 months from now when you will get a baby, some new
oh my gosh,
human being into your life?
I think the process has already been starting. It was, I've always been this type A person.
Yes.
Always achieving, doing, planning for so many things, people, projects. And as soon as I got pregnant, it was like the wind just hit me completely. So the first few months were a little rocky because for the first time in my life, I had to literally slow down.
Of course.
And there's no explanation for it. It's morning sickness and all, but for me it was like all day sickness. It never stopped. And so I really needed to rely on my team, my husband. And so that was something that was very unique for me, given that, and of course we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the interview, but it literally was the first time in my life that I had to lean on other people. And I've been so independent. And so that was a very... it's like the beginning stages in preparation for transitions, motherhood, family building, and just reframing and taking a different perspective versus always the type A, go-getter, go, career first, projects first, all of those things. So it's been quite the shift, but it's been a very fruitful one.
It's going to be interesting to see how you will restructure now your business and your life.
Yeah.
So do you have any ideas, how you will work? Like first 2-3 months, you will probably take some time off and then?
Yeah, I think that we've already been talking about it, obviously,
Yes.
as entrepreneurs, and of course teaching entrepreneurs business and things like that. For us, this whole transition has really been, figuring out what is working and closing up projects that aren't working, because now we need to have room for family time, babies. So it's been great. It's allowing me to hone in on a few of the things that are really working well, which is also going to carve up some time for us to enjoy our little mini human that we're creating.
So less is becoming more right now for you.
1000%. 1000%.
Before you maybe ran many projects, and now you have another new, very important project in your life.
Yes.
And then you start to cancel all other things that are not so important.
Yeah, and you realize, wow, being single or no child, and of course a lot of our friends have always said, and many of my clients have always said, oh, things are going to change when you have a baby.
Yeah.
And of course this, having two. Yes. I didn't viscerally understand it until I actually, got pregnant, and then you realize, wow, there's so many things I just cannot do. Whether I was not feeling well or whatever. So the few things in a day that are so important, you really honor that, you embrace it, and you drive that fully so that you can allow your own space and time for the family. And so it's been a great process to start planning that, for the next 6 months to a year after he is born.
Yeah. I think this is a very important topic, because I know many women that wants to be the entrepreneurs, and they don't see themselves in two roles. They don't see themselves as a mother and as a business owner.
Yeah.
And sometimes they give up on family, or they give up on their dreams.
Yeah.
So I think that you can run both lives, like business and personal life and family life.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons why entrepreneurship has been so fruitful for me all of these years, because, even as I work with a lot of females as well, and if you're so used to just doing one track, and you're not mentally prepared for juggling, two different hats. There's the guilt, there's the resentment, there's the shame, there's all of those things of, am I going too far this way, or am I not spending enough time with my family? But the idea is yes, you can have it all. There might not be that much balance in the beginning,
of course.
But with intention, anything can happen. Now, if you were, in the traditional corporate world or whatever, you're still going to have to make those, I feel like everyone has those choices that they do have to make, and sacrifices and things like that. And I think that for a lot of women, we put a lot of judgment and self-judgment and self-critique that it's supposed to be a certain way. But my way is probably going to be different from your way, then it's going to be different from somebody else's. But it's not to say it's good or bad. Yeah. It's just, being aware of being in tune of what works best for you, for your family, for the type of relationship that you have at home. I think paying more attention to that, because there's no right or wrong way of raising a family or building a business. I have clients who've been working on their business as their side project for years, but it actually still fuels them, and it still propels them, and they're creating their families, and that's okay, Whereas I have other clients who are writing their books, and they have a team, and they have things set up, and so I think it's really important that we celebrate the different types of ways that we can now build businesses, because of the onset of the internet, and the way that we communicate, and how things are done fast, and how our teams can be completely remote and global. I think we need to take the pressure off of ourselves and focus in on, okay, what's really going to work for me during this phase, during this time in my life right now. Not what social media says.
Yeah. So right now you are spending most of your time coaching other successful leaders and entrepreneurs.
Yes.
But if we go one step back,
Yeah.
You owned a multi-million-dollar dentistry practice.
I did. I did.
So how do you switch from owning a multi-million-dollar? You are a doctor, you know. It's some you were in some traditional profession, traditional business.
Yes.
And then you gave up on everything. What happened? I know many people are out there now, right now, listening. You know, they are struggling in their business. Maybe they are in some job stuck. Maybe they have successful businesses, but you know they have these golden handcuffs. How do you say?
It's the golden handcuffs.
Yes. So you earn money. You have everything. You have a big house. You had a big house. You used to live in a mansion. You were married.
Yes.
And then you gave up on everything. So what happened?
Yeah.
And how did you go through all of this?
Wow. Well, so I would have to say in a few words, it was recognizing my own awareness. And, you know, growing up traditionally in I'm first generation American. I was born in the US to immigrant parents. My mom was from the Philippines, my dad was from India, and they came to the US for, you know, the American dream. And, you know, little did we know that dream would birth, you know, my brothers and I, so there were three of us. And growing up in an Asian family, you know, the idea had always been education first, success, achievements, accolades, everything.
And from Indian father?
From a
you have to be a doctor
from a strict Indian father. Yeah, there was no choice. Doctor, dentist, lawyer, engineer.
That's it.
So it was any of the four. You know, you take your pick. And you know, I had quite a few things that would happen in my life that would help me grow really fast. So I had to grow up really fast. My mom got sick when I was 10 years old. And so I had to, as the only female left in the house, when my mom had breast cancer, I had to step in this role of taking care of my brothers.
10 years old.
Yeah, I was 10, and taking care of my father. And, you know, then fast forward through my teens, I would lose my mom to cancer. I would lose my brother to an asthma attack, and I would lose my father
you were how old, like
to
10?
lung cancer. Yeah, so my mom passed when I was 16. She battled long. And for anybody who's ever had a family member, you know, succumb to any sort of disease, we grew up in hospital settings. And so I had my first job when I was 14, trying to take care of the family. So
it's bringing tears to my eyes right now.
Yeah, it's you know, it's something that you don't really think your child's gonna go through. And so so with all of those bouts of resilience, which is what I teach today, of course, you know, the idea of I have to make it out and I have to do things to please my family, that was my underlying mission. Even though subconsciously I really didn't know what that was. I just knew I'm not going to be a pity party for my family. I'm going to raise my brother. I didn't know what that even meant because, you know, he was 14 at the time and I was 19, being this ambiguous role for my younger brother, Vinay. And so we lost my father when I was 19 years old, and you know I had to take the reins. And so what do you do when your earliest programming is of success,
yes,
achievement, and goals? Well, I'm going to become a doctor or dentist. And so I I did all of that. So my 20s were actually spent of, trying to get out of that very long tunnel. There was the light at the end of the tunnel, and it was, I'm going to take my brother with me, and we're going to crush through it. And I did that. And so because I had to, get 3 jobs when I was a teenager and all of those things, it prepared me so well for profession, for being, a business owner. And so, yes, like you said, I went to dental school. I became not just a general dentist, a cosmetic dentist. I learned early on that I loved bringing smiles to people's faces, literally, which is why I chose cosmetics. and I only do that differently now. It's from within. And so I did all of those things. I got married. I kept myself very busy in all of my 20s. And so for people who are watching and listening, when we keep ourselves busy, we distract ourselves from what's really going on. And for me, it was avoiding loss. It was avoiding grief that, was pent up and built up for so many years in my young life that I didn't really know how to process those emotions. And, I had a breakdown. I was 29 years old. It was December 31st. I still remember that. I was in my, master bedroom, and I was looking in the mirror, and I had, my clothes were all laid out. It was like a disaster, 5-story home. And I'm looking in the mirror, and it's December 31st. Everyone's partying, celebrating for the new year. And for me, I was, looking, and finally for the first time, I was just sobbing, looking, and I said to myself, how the heck did you get here? Because from the outside world,
it's perfect.
Everything was perfect. Everything was picture perfect. I had my, my $1 million practice. I was married. I had this fancy house. I had made it. But I didn't really know who I was. In that moment, I recognized that I was in an abusive relationship, marriage, and my relationship was toxic. I was afraid of everybody, including the people that I hired to work for me, my patients. I was afraid of the world. I was afraid of what will people think if they actually knew the truth about me. I felt like I was such an imposter. And so in that moment, completely breaking down, I realized there's 2 options. I can go on living my life like this, or I can choose to leave. And probably the hardest decision I could ever do, but the biggest blessing. Because in the months and the years to come, yes, I would dive into personal growth and development. I would go to meditation.
After you got divorced, or before?
It was after. It was after I left the relationship. That was the last time I actually looked at that home, that life, the community that I was in, everything. And then in the few years to come, I started many other businesses that were helping other women, women's empowerment, women's leadership, women's development, and utilizing my skill sets because I did have capital. I was young, and I just had started learning what angel investing was. I started learning what being an angel investor and what entrepreneurship, real entrepreneurship, startup entrepreneurship really was. I mean, I owned my own business, but it's very different. When you're trained as a doctor for 8 years, you're trained not to make mistakes. You're trained to be perfect. I'm working with millimeters. I can see your smile. You have a great smile, by the way. But you're working in such small parameters where the expectations are very high. So you're not taught to make mistakes. And so with entrepreneurship, startups, and the whole world of Silicon Valley, which I was then exposed to, because I started all of these different types of projects, that's when I realized that I could lend more and really help build. First, it was confidence building, and then it was what it was leadership development. But what I realized was in becoming a doctor in medical school, dental school, you're not really taught leadership skills, and you're not taught business. And these are the things that I had to learn throughout my life, because of all of the things that I had gone through. So that begun the shift and the change in my discovery of, and of course research into the work that I'm doing now and the books that I was going to write.
We will talk about this later. But tell me something. How much time went by from the first time that you thought, oh, this relationship is not working for me, and to the moment that you said it's over? And you told to your husband, like, sometimes, you know, when we realize that it's over and when we give up on the relationship, you know, it can be like 5 years. For somebody, it's 10 years.
Yeah. You know, for me, it was, you know, I wanted that fairy tale wedding. And I knew deep inside that something wasn't right, but I still went on.
On the time, on the date of wedding.
I still went on with it because it was lavish. It was all of those things. It was, and you compromise yourself. And I know so many women, especially women, you know, for Indian women, and if you watch Bollywood, that's the thing that you grow up to have, the big fat Indian wedding. And honestly, that was the case for me. It's I didn't want to be married. I wanted the wedding. So why couldn't I just have a party, right? And we see this so much in the culture. You know, the culture that's kind of that's kind of showcased to us. But for me, it began. It was 2 years before I actually before things became dangerous, and I actually had to leave. And so there was no discussion. There was just, I left, got a restraining order, and endured a lot of growth in the process, because leaving that sort of tumultuous situation is not always the easiest. But you know, you learn so much, you know, from it. And it just gives you fuel to do what you've really been called to do your whole life. But because you've been living either behind a mask, either behind people.
We wear so many masks.
We wear tons of masks. You know, your own true self isn't really able to flourish because you're trying to be something, or you don't really know who you really are because you've had so many layers of all of those things and masks, you know, protecting you.
So we hear so many times that we attract some circumstances and events into our life. Why did you attract this abusive relationship into your life?
Such a powerful question. I love that question. You know, I think it's really because I never spent the time to really get to know myself. I didn't spend the time to really know what self-love meant. And, you know, especially coming from Asian upbringing, you're taught that happiness lies on making other people happy. And, you know, you're happy if somebody else is happy. And so I spent most of my early childhood making others happy. You know, I had to take care of
your mother, your father.
You know, everyone. And watching them really succumb to their diseases that I did not know who I was. And so it really took me this, you know, this human to really kind of challenge what does unconditional love for yourself actually mean, and how can you love yourself unapologetically even when times are tough. And I think for so many you know, for so many people that is so hard, because we think that, okay, I will be loved, or I will be worthy, or I will be accepted if I do this, if I get straight A's, if I write my first book, if I speak around the world, if I gain $1 million, you know, all of these things. But what
coming
is
from outside?
All the external factors, you know, what does it really say about you on the inside? You know, and then you see others, you know, succumb to distractions or overeating or depression or anxiety or stress, and, you know, all of the negative emotions that can spiral out because we don't take ownership and responsibility for, you know, where we are at the moment. Meaning that, okay, do I really love myself, or do I need somebody else to love me? Do I need somebody else to tell me that I'm worthy or not worthy, and believe that from that place? And so I think that's the beauty, and with so many circumstances and tragedies and setbacks and failed relationships, we can learn so much about ourselves in that, because essentially at the end of the day, they're just mirrors of parts of us that we have yet to see, parts of us that are really that we're trying to explore, but there's such a deep wound sometimes that it's easier to bury, and it's easier to distract ourselves with work and all of the external things. Yes.
Yeah. What would your advice be for the women that are in abusive, unfulfilled relationship, and sometimes they don't finish this relationship because they don't have money? Maybe they are a bit dependent on the income from their husband.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome this?
It's a common topic, and unfortunately, it's a question that I get asked quite a bit, because there are two variables at play. There's the dependency. There's also perhaps maybe there's a lifestyle involved, and to really answer that question, you have to look at the values, and you have to look at what do you value in your life at this point. Do you value certainty?
Okay.
Meaning that lifestyle, money, all of these things, maybe I'll tiptoe over him again, maybe I just won't say anything, maybe he can keep his room and I can keep my room, and things are gonna be okay. Maybe I can have that affair, things are gonna be okay. You have to really think of the fears that are actually holding you back, the fears of what's going to happen to me, the worst types of fears, because that's the first step to growth. If it doesn't scare you, then it's not worth doing. But really to take an inventory and an assessment of what are your values, what are you prioritizing in your life, and what are you willing to change because you want something different? Because the want from here, from our heart, is different from up here. We rationalize everything in our minds. I can't do it, I don't know anything, it's been so long, I've been taking care of the kids for so long, et cetera, et cetera. What's another 5 years, what's another 10 years? But what would it look like to you if you did have that ideal life? We have to think of, well, what does that ideal perfect life look like, where you are fulfilled, where you are doing something, where you are being valued in your relationship, where you are being valued as you, as a human being. And what does that look like? And are you willing to change and shift and cause a disruption in your current reality so that you can actually see what is on the other side? Most people are too afraid to even take a look at that, because looking at this brighter side involves risk. It involves confronting your own fears. It involves building strength. And it involves really, perhaps going through one of the most painful events in your life. But at the end of the day, if those priorities, if this is what you value more, if the future and that fulfillment is what you value more, then isn't that worth looking at and assessing for you? We have to align with our priorities and our values, and what your values right now that have led you to this point are going to be completely different than what's going to lead you to the next level of who you're meant to be. And if you're listening to this right now, and if there's something that's triggering you, it's almost like a sign, and it's a wake-up call. And there's only so many signs in your life that the universe will bring, or people will bring, or things and circumstances are going to bring to your life, that you're going to say, oh my gosh, maybe it is time. Maybe it is time. And we have to take those opportunities.
Some powerful wisdom. Let's go one step back. What advice would you give to your 19-year-old self? You lost your mother, your brother, your father. What would you do differently? Would you go to this dentistry school? Because you are doing right now, you are doing something completely different.
You know, I think that one of the most powerful things I could ever say to myself at 19 is, you are loved. You are bold, you are brave, and you are amazing. And, you know, leading from that lens, I think I still would, you know, go through, I don't think I would ever change the path that I took. And this is such a great question. You know, looking back, do I have any regrets, or would I do something differently? And I don't think so. I think every single thing and every single circumstance that I've gone through has led me up to why we're sitting in this room today. And I think that, you know, once we honor our stories, no matter how hard, you know, how profound, how you know, how at the time maybe terrible they are, they're such gems. And perhaps, you know, at a deeper level, spiritual level, it's really what, you know, that mission that we're here on this planet is for. And so, you know, yes, would I have probably gone to dental school? Absolutely. It helped train me for, you know, recognizing psychological imbalances in human beings, which is what I love, and which is what, you know, I love, you know, human psychology. So that's one. And two, you know, it was the building blocks of business building, which is what I see in so many others. And quite honestly, a lot of the leaders and entrepreneurs that I do help out, they are in transition. They are doctors, engineers, lawyers as well, stuck in a certain part of their life.
So what is the common problems that you see in entrepreneurs like me or business owners? What is the common problem or many problems that we face or have?
Wow, a lot of times it is personal.
Yeah.
They come to me because they want to, you know, scale their business and things like that. But when we go one level deeper,
So they come for scaling their business, and then you go deeper into their personal life.
Yes, yes.
Not into the funnels and marketing.
No. That's why they may think they want that, but it's more so for structuring their own life and the life that they want to actually have. They don't really know how to articulate that because, you know, they're on the track. They're on the track to do this, and, you know, all of these things. But when you really ask the question, you know, are you happy, and what's the biggest challenge that you're facing personally?
What answers do you get?
Or professionally?
When you ask this question, are you happy, and what are the biggest challenges that you're facing? What do they
When
say?
we go deeper, it's well, yes, I think so. Yes, I think so. Yes.
I think so that I'm happy.
Yes, I think so. But it's not absolutely, because there's something that they want to change, right? And so, not that there's anything wrong with not being happy,
Okay,
because you know, that's the way that we grow, right? But I think at a deeper level, many of the entrepreneurs that I work with, there is a lack of fulfillment. Either money has already been there, money has been made, you know, either they're on the verge of burnout, and burnout because there are personal things getting in the way, such as most of the time it's relationships, and or most of the time they want to find relationships. So these are some of the in fulfilled relationships. And of course, that's the question that I get a lot, is they're in some sort of a bind. Either they've been with somebody for far too long that's not on their growth, or there's a conflict within themselves that is now coming into the business. A lot of times we think that professional and personal is different. They walk the same path. They do blur, and so, you know, even with the executives that I coach, it's it's all like this. And so we need to ask ourselves, how do we want to show up, both personally and professionally?
So do you think that you cannot be successful in business if you are not fulfilled in your personal life and relationship, or vice versa?
So
Maybe you can have great relationship and you are not successful in the business, or I don't know. What? Just sometimes I'm thinking, I see these big successful entrepreneurs, but I know that everything else, it's not working.
it happens more often than not that if there's one aspect of their life that's completely thriving, and most of the time, because we focused so much on how to build a business, how to do funnels, how to do all of these things, how to write books, how to influence other people, we neglect, what we focus on grows, right? If we focus on our business all day long for the last 20, 30, 40 years, absolutely. But if we've neglected our families as a result, if we've neglected our relationships as a result, then which most of the time happens with brilliant entrepreneurs, because this is what society has told us, right? You have to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to be successful.
Yes.
Success has always been measured by the numbers and
yeah.
all of those things. It's now that we're getting into a shift where we're really talking about what is true fulfillment. And do we have to be 80 years old to start seeking true fulfillment? No. We don't have to sit on top of a mountain and meditate, for 18 hours a day to finally find fulfillment. We can actually incorporate it into our lives. And, the way that we do business is changing so fast. And the idea and the definitions of work is changing so fast, where we actually can implement this sort of a life-work balance. And that's great. And what if success was measured by not the amount that's in your bank account or by all of the accolades and awards that you've achieved globally, but what if it is creating that family and raising many humans that are respectful and do-gooders and have amazing character? What if it is having a passionate relationship with your wife? There are different seasons and there are different phases. Just like there are different seasons and different phases and different stages in a business, there are different seasons and phases in your life. And it's okay to, I think that we need to start giving ourselves permission as entrepreneurs that, what? Maybe this year I'm not going to grow 15%, but I'm actually going to grow in other ways. I'm going to take that
As a father, maybe, as a mother.
As a father, as a mother, as a couple, doing contribution. If we're on this planet for 80 years, let's say, what's 1 or 2 years that we actually focus on some other things that light us up, that's not fully in the realm and scope of business? Because we're here for the long run. We're not here, this is not a sprint, and I think so many people lose sight of that, which is why we're getting massive numbers of people committing suicide and, the depression rates and the unfulfillment, and it just keeps going into a spiral because we're losing perspective of, hey guys, we're here for a while. We're here for a while on this planet, and if you love what you're doing, then why don't we figure out what other aspects of success that you can actually bring into in other areas of your life.
You mentioned the burnout, and many times you mentioned the resiliency. You wrote a book, Emotional Grit. Can you explain what is emotional grit and how do you apply into their clients' lives?
Yes. Yeah. So this was obviously one of the main components for myself during the self-discovery. And so what got me so curious
About this,
about
neuroscience, positive
right.
psychology. No?
What got me so curious was when I was traveling to over 40 countries at the time. I was so passionate about trying to figure out how leadership works in different parts of the world, and how leadership works not just from doctors, not just from leaders of organizations, not just from community leaders or Fortune 500, 100 titans, but really community people from different cultures, different religions, different colors, all over the world. And there were about 10 characteristics that we surveyed. Okay. The number one characteristic, though, that stood out was resilience. And the idea that it's your ability to basically bounce back when times are tough, to bounce back from...
And the times will be tough.
During times of adversity, how fast can you rise? And grit is really your own determination and your own internal motivation of how long you can endure a situation that may be difficult in your life. So I use grit as an acronym. And it really is to grow, reveal, innovate, and transform. And so because a few years ago we had an election, a very famous election in the States. And so I was coaching many leaders at the time, and so the idea was really how can we create a more emotional leadership-based world, or a heart-centered world, not based off of ego, but really understanding the emotions of other people and how to manage our own emotions. Stress is at an all-time high, all of these things. And so emotional grit really came out at a time where a lot of these things are coming to the surface, and what that means for the mom next door, or the entrepreneur, or the leader of their community. It means to really look inside your life right now and be that leader of your life. Meaning that what does your previous experiences, your previous failures, your previous setbacks, what does that actually say about you, and how are you willing to go forward, knowing that there's going to be ups and downs in your life. But when somebody cuts you off, in traffic, or smokes in your face, or whatever the nuances of the day-to-day, with your children, with your spouse, do you actually have the emotional grit to really have those powerful conversations, to really communicate effectively? So this is what emotional well-being and what emotional grit really talks about. It's, can you be open to growing, or having the awareness to accept where you are right now, where your emotional health is right now? I'm feeling sad. I'm angry. Instead of shoving it under a rug, not having to talk about it, and then blowing up when it's not really
in the meeting somewhere.
The opportune time. And correct. And so, in revealing, which is the R, is can you accept where you're at, and then committing to a different take, and taking action and transforming. So that's the bulk of the work that I'm doing now, is teaching resilience and grit in funny ways, different aspects of entrepreneurship.
So
but also,
how is playfulness
important
to incorporate into everyday leadership? And I think many business owners are very serious business owners. I like to joke. I like to smile.
Good. You're good. I think that we came up with this spoof series called School of Grit, and School of Grit TV has really been about emotional resilience is the spectrum of emotions.
Yes.
We can be serious. We could be all of these things. We can be empathetic, compassionate. But really, to build resilience is you have to not take things so seriously. Humor is an aspect of building resilience, because if we're serious all the time, then we're going to just judge ourselves, critique ourselves. It's never going to be good enough, and nobody ever is going to ever feel good enough. But if we just laugh at ourselves and really play with some of the nuances that happen in our daily lives, I think, you have less stress as a result, and you're much happier as a result. And of course, there's so many different studies that validate this. But for me and our team, it was a call to bridge the gap between what entrepreneurs face on a daily basis and how we can actually bring light and fun and humor in the process of building a business. And I think you can get away with a lot more things using humor. And so
Absolutely.
it's been a fun ride. So yeah, it's School of Grit TV.
You mentioned burnout.
Yes.
It's very common in entrepreneurship and entrepreneur world. So if you neglect well-being, what happens?
Yeah.
What is the worst case scenario?
I mean, the worst case is that you basically don't realize your potential. You leave everything. We see this all the time in the startup world.
Yeah.
It's the chase to, get the funding, get all of these things, get investors on board, pitching, et cetera, and building a team. But then if you neglect your own health, your own mind space, your own mindset, burnout is the full result of that. And we see it all the time. You leave everything on the table. And so, what if there's a way to put all of that in a nice little box, tie it with a bow, and say, okay, we can prevent this burnout from happening if you just take the steps on a daily basis to take care of your emotional health. Really understand, recognize, process those feelings and those emotions so that it doesn't kind of, doesn't manifest throughout your body and cause a burnout and
illnesses
and disease. Yes.
So like the whole Silicon Valley right now, it's talking about mindfulness, meditation. It's very popular in big companies, Apple, Google.
Yeah.
They have courses on resilience. I think Starbucks, they have courses on resilience. They have courses on mindfulness, happiness. Is it important to incorporate meditation into your life as an entrepreneur, not a Buddhist or a monk? There are some entrepreneurs, when they hear in our part of the world, like, you have to meditate. Oh, I'm not going to meditate.
That's for
I'm
monks.
not a monk. I'm not a monk. So meditation, do you also teach meditation or recommend meditation?
So that's one of the components of building resiliency.
The grit and emotional.
It's part of what I call Formas. It's part of how to create your bliss, your daily bliss on a daily basis. Because for everybody, not one strategy is going to work. What we know and what we found that works really, really well is, of course, meditation, movement. Mantra, saying positive words to yourself, like affirmations, music, funny clips, anything humorous, anything that maybe is inspiring to you, gratitude and appreciation, and of course nutrition, right? And then we can get into the specifics of scents and smells, but the first and foremost is, how are we actually breathing? How are we, there's a study done with the HeartMath Institute that if we just put our hands over our heart, okay, and for 90 seconds, if we're literally just breathing, 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out, 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out, for 90 seconds, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system in our body to slow down, that rest and digest, because all day long we're so hyper. But if we use this technique,
so you go like that?
So you put your hands over your heart, and this is from the HeartMath Institute, so I give them credit. But literally you're breathing, and there's apps on our phones and even Apple Watches, they do this, but it's very simple. And we're breathing 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one might say, is this meditation? Yes, this is a
yeah.
form of meditation. We don't have to be on a mountaintop.
And
How long did it
45
take
minutes
us?
or 1 hour.
Right. This took us, literally less than 15 seconds to do. But when you're doing it more than 3 times, that process,
A day?
in, out, consecutively. So for a total of 90 seconds, you can time it on your watch.
Okay.
Basically, it activates your parasympathetic so that you are able to reduce the amount of stress, think clearly. When we think clearly, when our parasympathetic is activated, we're not making decisions in haste. If you've ever thought about when you're in high stress and you've got to do all of these things. Sometimes we make the biggest mistakes when we're at high stress because we have to do so many things.
Yeah.
So when you are in this state of activating, this is what we call breath work. But breath work is actually one form of meditation that is very easy to do and anybody can do. But this is a way of training your brain to relax.
So you call this breath work.
This is breath work. Yes, this is
there
one
a-
form of breath work.
Is there any app outside, or would you recommend any tool to use?
Oh gosh, there's
For meditation, I use Calm.
There's
Do you have
so
any other tools
there's
that you're
so
using, or-
many. There's well, now that I'm on the pregnancy kick, I use one for pregnancy, which is called Expectful. Expectful. So for the moms out there, the women out there, they have great meditations. But there's so many, even on the Apple app. There's, you can have timers. There's binaural beats that I recommend to a lot of my clients because binaural beats mimic the brain waves that actually get your mind into a better state for creativity, for deep breathing, for deep sleep. And that's another conversation. But yes, meditation is part of not only building resiliency, but also stress management on a daily basis.
Yeah, I meditate too. Sometimes it's hard to slow down your mind. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
anyway, it's helpful.
It is. It is 1,000%. I wouldn't be here.
More productive, everything.
I would not be here with all of the traumas and things like that without meditation. Yeah, that was one of the first things that I did. Yeah.
Let's jump to your business right now.
Yes.
You're a coach, speaker. You wrote a book
Yes.
about coaching.
I did. This was my second book, and
This is the answer to what? To many questions that you get from some wannabe coaches or professional coaches?
This project was twofold.
Okay.
The first one was on a personal level. I met my new found husband.
I know him very well.
And we met actually because I was also I was his coach. And so we met in a very business setting, but he's a business coach, and I'm a leadership coach, and so I was doing things with him on leadership, and he was, we were playing together in the professional space, and when two entrepreneurs get together and want to build lives together, we really wanted to say, well, how can we co-create together? And one of the results was, well, he services a lot of coaches as well, and I do a lot with emotional mindset and resilience, and so the natural result was, there is something missing with so many people that are now transitioning into either sharing their expertise, sharing their wisdom, transitioning from traditional careers like corporate or golden handcuffs into something that they want to do. Well, why can't we put something out there that congregates all of the information, that gives practical tools, not just if you want to be a coach, but the World Economic Forum just came out with skills that are going to be needed by 2020. And this is the World Economic Forum, and coaching was one of the top skills needed. And so using coaching not just as a profession,
Yes.
but as a skill.
As a business owner, manager, or whatever.
As a CEO, C-suite, yes, business owner, human head of your household.
Yes, father.
How do you coach, and how do you actually listen? How do you coach? How do you actually listen to the things that the person that you are having a conversation with is not telling you? What are those skills looking like? And of course, if you want to build a business around it, yes, what are the 3 things that we do teach in the book? And that's, your mindset, your methodology, because, there's a lot of, different ways out there that you can lend and you can teach. We are very committed on elevating human potential because it's very important for us. That is our highest value, and we when we came together as a couple, that was one of the things where we said, well, how can we spread this, and how can we share this together, and elevating human potential in this way of serving and adding value. Well, that's what we teach within the book. So your own methodology, what that looks like, and marketing your message, what that looks like, and of course,
it's also about marketing.
There's a section in there about how to market your message and what to really do to stand out, and hence there's the business incubator as a result. So we're very, very excited about that. This is the newest phase of our business.
That's great. So 1 + 1 will be 11, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have many followers that are in the coaching profession.
Yes.
Or speaker.
Yes.
Whatever, and I also have a course on teaching them how to sell from stage and
Oh,
so
yeah.
on. So what are your tips? How do you build? How did you build your brand? How do you market your services? Because I know many coaches that are broke.
Of course. Oh, yes. Of course.
They have all the credentials, all diplomas, certifications.
Yes.
But no money.
Yes.
So it's not only about what you know, but how you sell.
Right. It's 1000% how you are marketing your message out there. You can, we have the people who I call, and in the School of Grit, we say they're the seminar junkies. They go to every single seminar.
Yeah, you're speaking to one of them.
But the difference probably between you and them is
I implement.
you implement. They don't. It's
Yes.
just you run from one to the next to the next, and the thousands of courses, the e-courses that you can take. This is great, but what are you actually incorporating in your business, and what is the one thing? You don't have to take all of them, but what's the one thing that you can actually hone in on your business? I think because we get so influenced by so many different influencers out there, the number one thing that we teach is pick one lane and stick to it. If you're doing well on Facebook, keep going on Facebook.
Okay.
If you're speaking to moms, or if you're speaking to executives, keep speaking to them. Do that one thing really, really well, and go really, really deep in it. Find out all of the pain points around it and really provide value for that. What so many people try to do is they try to do so many things all at once at the same time. That's only going to lead you to burnout. That's going to lead you to disorganization of not only your mind, but your thoughts. And no one is going to end up getting value at the end of the day because you're so spread out. We have to take it back, because less is more now in so many senses of the word. We are so bombarded with so many things within social media, within our emails, and we have to be very distinct and discerning in how we want to, especially when you're first starting out as a coach, how you want to brand your message. So for me, in the initial stages of branding and all those things, I did all of the, I was a doctor, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take every single certification course, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you have to be okay with making mistakes. I remember the first course I launched probably was 3 years ago now. And this was just because I was watching everybody else doing things, but I wasn't paying attention to what was actually working for me. what was working for me was people were coming to me one-on-one from different parts of the world. While I was sharing my story, we went through all of that already. I was very open about it. I was very vulnerable about it. This led me to get clients from, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, in Asian parts of the world, where talking about divorce and things like that, and it was so taboo. It's not common. However, that was a niche that was building, because in those parts of the world, well, guess what? They had money. They had a certain point of expertise. They had a certain point of track record that they already had. What they didn't have was fulfillment, and they were stuck. So that was the gateway initially to really understanding, okay, the market that is really responding to who I am as, and I didn't even call myself a coach at that point. Like, yes, I consult, because I used to consult small businesses and doctors and dentists and lawyers, and then it started to spread, right? So you have to figure out what, as a coach, who and what is gravitating towards you already, just because of the content that you're putting out right now. Not because you see
Somebody else.
Joe Schmo is doing this course, so you want to do the course because you see how many followers they have. But maybe you're doing one-on-ones and you go to the community BNI meetings every month and you're getting your clients from there. Why not build that out first? We think what we're doing right now is not good enough, but that might be your gold mine. And so when I crashed that course 3 years ago, what ended up happening was, I was heartbroken, but what ended up happening was, on the back end, I had so many one-on-one clients. And that's when we realized, oh my gosh, there is this gift. There is this personalization. There's people wanted to have workshops. So you start building out those elements of your business. So don't be afraid to fail. One, don't be afraid to find out just what works for you, even if it's small, because when you have your 10 raving fans, those 10 will immediately go to 100, which will then go to 1,000. All you need is your first 100 raving fans, wherever they are.
Be patient.
And be patient. People want to do it all. It's not, you're in this for the long run. I always say greatness is not built overnight. It's a marathon, as a former marathon runner. So
You mentioned two great things that you have to build the foundation, and for your business, speaking, coaching, this is storytelling and be vulnerable.
1,000%.
I see coaches, they don't want to be vulnerable. Like, I'm not going to talk about my personal life and what I went through, because that will make me weak. So I think that this is the key to a successful attraction.
Yes.
Of great clients.
Yes, in my European market, I get this question asked a lot, because it's very much, the idea of being very stoic and, not.
But I think vulnerability is also part of being stoic.
Yeah, I think even more than that, vulnerability is really part of how you build trust.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Without vulnerability, we have, especially right now, you have so much of inauthentic leadership, that if you are able to display vulnerability that's actually true to you, that's not made up, but that's actually true, you will see how your business transforms. You will see exactly how your business transforms. Because people are so sick of seeing the mask. Nobody wants to see somebody perfect. We're all human. we all have stuff going on in our lives. I mean, we want practicality, we want the truth, but we want honesty as well. And all of those things make up vulnerability. It makes up authenticity.
You have a team?
I do.
Yeah. So which roles did you outsource? You're outsourcing right now.
Wow.
How many people you have on the team?
So I have I have 7. And so I have a copywriter. Okay. I have a social media manager. I have a PR person. I have somebody that schedules all of my basically like on the ground events. I have my own assistant. That does mostly, home management, all the other management stuff. And then I have a project manager. So 6. Yeah, 6. And then one on occasion if graphic designer, of course. That's that's part of it.
But they're all outsourced.
So
Somebody's full-time?
Yes.
PM?
My project manager and my copywriter, they're pretty much full-time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where are you gonna build your life right now?
Oh,
Did you decide already?
in LA,
Your husband,
in Los Angeles.
He used to travel all the time.
Yeah, well, yes, we both actually.
Yeah.
When we met a few years ago, I was researching on my book,
Yeah.
and so I was popping into different countries, and I was actually about to move to Singapore, and he was in Malaysia about to move to San Diego, so we were kind of doing this. And what was so interesting was we decided to, and I'm going to speak for myself, but I decided to choose love first. And in the past, I had chosen career first. And I remember because I was launching Emotional Grit the fall of that year, it was 2016. And I had to ask myself, because I had all of these things happening in India and Singapore, like in the Asian market, the Asian diaspora. And I wasn't really promoting it in the US because I didn't think that that's where I was going to live. And things changed because, well, I met my, now husband. So for those of you who are kind of in that bind, you never know what will happen if you just say yes. And now we were traveling for about a year and a half together, doing our own things separately. And then we decided, if we really want to make this work, we do have to sacrifice some things. And what are we going to close some doors to so that we can kind of start merging and coalescing our entrepreneurial dreams together, but also to be together as a couple. So that was one of the decisions that I made to be stateside, and here we are. Los Angeles is going to be home, and I think traveling a few months out of the year for family and things like that. And we have many clients that are in Europe and in Asia. So yeah, still doing
Great
events
future.
there. Yes.
Great future. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Tomorrow you have a
Oh,
birthday.
yes. Happy birthday to your son,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
July
He's
5th is an amazing day.
celebrating also, yeah. Where can we find more information about you? On your webpage?
Yes, just neetabhushan.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the book, where we can buy a book?
You can get Emotional Grit and the Book of Coaching on Amazon.
On Amazon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to have you here, and let me know when you get a baby.
Okay, we
Do
will
you
do.
pick the name? Did you pick the name?
We didn't as of yet.
It's a boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
Okay. And the name?
We don't know.
You didn't decide yet?
Not as of yet. We have, it's still a toss-up, but we'll see.
Okay.
Yes, you'll be one of the first to know.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thank you.